This is the most important hour I spend with clients, and it is the first hour. Usually you kind of get referred to them, you get a phone call, kind of a conversation. I get them set up with one of our lenders. So I get a lot of people with Nate, Abby, Will, Town First people, of course. We want to make sure we get them pre-qualified where we'll sit them down to kind of go over kind of how we work, how things operate. That really is step one. We bring buyers into the office, which is something I want to talk about. We want to make sure we get them into our office. I try to avoid all the coffee shops, Panera Breads, all that sort of stuff. Bring them into your turf, your office, your terms. It's professional. So this is not like a casual thing. This is a serious thing they're getting ready to enter into. And now we're also asking them to potentially pay us as well. So we want to kind of get them into our world and show them what we can do. So as we have that initial phone call, we really want to get them set up with the lender to make sure we know how much they can afford. The last thing I want to do is start taking buyers out and they haven't talked to the lender yet. They don't know what's going on, what's happening, how closing costs work, what money's going to cost them out of pocket, have they had their credit score run. That is a giant, giant waste of time. So if they are not willing to talk with a lender prior to coming in to meet with you, they are not worth your time. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. That's also going to give you a pretty good background, a relationship with your lender to kind of know, hey, are they 20% down, easy peasy financing, or are we going to be, 100% down VA, or have to do some FHA stuff as we kind of encounter different houses on the market? That's stuff you want to be able to set and kind of know going into it prior to really diving in with these people. So, all right, packet. We'll kind of go through this here page by page. This is what we use, like I said, bring them in. This appointment usually lasts about, some of my teammates will get it done, Ben will get it done in 45 minutes. I usually take close to an hour and a half. I like to be extremely thorough on all this stuff. This packet usually takes me about 45 minutes to an hour to really go through. It depends on how many questions they have. Am I dealing with an experienced repeat buyer? Am I dealing with a first timer? Do we have their parents with them? Whoever else it may be. If we are having a buyer meeting, we want to make sure we have all parties there in-house before we ever go do anything, okay? If the parents are going to be involved, invite them. It's not a bad thing at all. I always ask for referrals during this as well. So if you get, instead of having, one or two people, if you can have, 3 to 4, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. It's building rapport and also expanding your network. So we want to make sure we have all parties involved. We don't want to be meeting with just the wife and the husband's not there, or vice versa. It's good to have the communication being open and clear. We don't want to go all this stuff twice. Like I said, you're speaking with just one party, and then you get to the transaction, and the other party has no idea what's going on or wasn't there, wants to do things differently. I always do refer back to the packet. Hey, we went over this stuff in our meeting. This is what the expectations were going into it, and make sure everyone's on the same page. You don't want to be kind of having people going different directions. That's when you lose control of a transaction and your clients. So. All right, first page here, this is just kind of going over kind of table of contents. We go over some common misconceptions held by home buyers, go through the real estate roster, kind of who's involved in the transaction, purchasing pathways, and these steps kind of 1 through 10 of actually how we buy the house. Loan process, we'll kind of briefly go over that. That does vary based on each client, depending on what type of loan they're doing, or if they're paying in cash. This stuff doesn't always apply to everybody. Talk about how we like to schedule showings and get the home inspection set up and what they kind of can expect from that. We talk about what the client responsibilities are, and we have a client appreciation program, which we do a lot of fun stuff throughout the year. That's kind of all the main highlights of this. Once they get through this packet, we get them set up on their own custom search tailored to exactly what they're looking for. We'll kind of talk a little bit about that at the end. Okay. Next page, the 5 common misconceptions. These have changed a little bit. We're getting ready to review this packet kind of as the new lawsuit stuff gets a little bit more figured out, but we'll hit that one as number 5, and we'll finish that here in a second. Number 1, it'll cost you money to get pre-qualified. As you know, that is false. It doesn't cost anybody any money. It costs the lender a few dollars to pull their credit, but that does not really charge the buyer anything. So some people are scared and think it's going to cost a bunch of money. It does not. Go ahead and get them pre-qualified so we know what we're doing, and that's got to be done prior to the meeting. If they have not talked to the lender, they talk to the lender 20 minutes before. I usually try to give them a call either the day before or the day of, just kind of make sure that, hey, we're still on, still good to go. If they have not had that conversation with the lender, I cancel our appointment and we reschedule until they talk to the lender. Our appointment is pointless until we have them pre-qualified. Okay? All right, number 2, realtors can only represent you in the purchase of a single family home. This is a great opportunity to let them know that you don't just work resales, you can also help with new construction, you can help with lots, lands, anything like that, condos, townhouses, you can cover it all. If they're only for single family, that's great, but just know that can help out your friends and family that may be looking for other things. Okay, so that's an opportunity to kind of ask for, kind of put that bug in their ear, asking for referrals. When buying the Rogers Long Team, we can only purchase hometown realty listings. Obviously, we all in here work for hometown realty, unless we have any guests here today. Good, keep going house, go hometown. Make sure you guys get shirts here, by the way, too, if you're not been here before. By the Rogers Long Team, we only purchase hometown realty listings. I'll let the people know it's, obviously we love to work with other hometown agents, but 9 out of 10 deals are usually done between different brokerages. Okay, so we'll be working with Joyner, Long and Foster, any other mom and pop shops that are out there. Just let them know that. Some people have, and all these things sound pretty simple for most people, but you also get people who have no idea about half this stuff. So I want to make sure we educate them here up front. Number 4 is probably my favorite one. I will select Perfect Home. The Perfect Home is not out there. Let them know that up front. Especially these days, we still have lower inventory for the house. If we can check off 7 out of their 10 boxes, that's pretty good. Just know that it's not going to be a 10 out of 10. Even when people build new construction, there's going to be stuff they don't like. They want to wish they had changed. They think that should have been nicer or done better or cut better. Perfect house is not out there, so we want to take them kind of chop that pedestal really in half and let them know that we are going to work about eliminating a lot of things. So we want to take off the stuff when we set up their search. We want to remove the things that don't make sense for them. So if they only want to look in Hanover and Henrico, and guess what we're going to do on their search? We're going to cut out Richmond, Chesterfield, everything else. We've eliminated all that. That way it's only being sent to them stuff that makes sense for it. If they don't want to be on the well and septic, you can get extremely detailed on the search. The more detailed you are, the simpler your life becomes. Okay, we don't want them to go on a wild goose chase of, if we set their search up and they have 100 matches, that's entirely too many. That means they're looking at 1,000 different things. You're going to end up looking at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 houses, sometimes in the same day. That is not good for your cars. It's not good for your gas. Anything like that. It's also just not good for your time, because we want to eliminate that up front. All right. Lastly, number 5. This is the fun one. We'll spend a little bit more time talking about this. Traditionally, we've had in here, I must pay my realtor when I close my purchase. Now, that is not really a misconception. That may be true. Okay, we want to set this expectation up front and early. The way I'm having this conversation is, one, a lot of people still don't know. Obviously, we work real estate every single day. We're in front of this all the time. It's kind of at the forefront for us. A lot of other people have life going on where this is something that, hey, we just have to do, or hey, we have to move now. If they haven't been paying attention, watching the news, they're scrolling on whatever else, or reading whatever other news they're doing, or not watching the news at all, they're taking care of kids. This is not the forefront for everybody, so this is an awesome opportunity to educate them on what we got going on. So, with lawsuit, there's no real guarantee that the seller is going to be offering compensation. So, once we kind of get our search everything here in, we do go over the buyer brokerage agreement. What we are starting to do is we are putting in there that we work for 3%. Okay, so it's filled in. We work for 3%, and we let them know, hey, some listings may be offering 3%, other ones may be offering 2%. Some may be offering nothing. Okay, we won't really know that until we have that conversation with the listing agent. I'm going to be clear, honest, and transparent with you on what the seller is going to be offering us. If it is not 3%, you are responsible for the difference. Okay. So some people are offering 1%, they may get scared, hey, this is going to cost me money. Obviously we can't go work for free. There's also no guarantee that we get paid unless you actually physically actually close on the house. So that's how I kind of tee that up for them. If they get, I haven't gotten a ton of kickback, to be 100% honest with you. If people want to go shop around or not pay anything out of pocket, and everything costs money. I mean, hell, I get the tip 20% now to get a coffee, and they don't even do anything for you. All they did is take your order, mix it up. They didn't help you with the largest transaction of your entire life. Okay, you guys got to know your worth, know your value, and just know that, hey, we are worth 3%. You got to be able to show that to them. Okay, we're professionals in this business. We need to kind of continue to fight for all this as we move forward through this whole transition into the lawsuit stuff. But we need to be able to show value, and by doing what we're talking about right here, by bringing them into the office, going over all this stuff, this is showing value to your clients. I can't tell you how many times I got people who they're on their 3rd, 4th house that have never sat down and gone over the process. They've never been told how everything works, what to expect. So this is something that we do. I think everyone in here should make either their own packet. I'm happy to email this over to you. It's a PDF. I don't know how to edit PDFs or do anything. Ben does all this sort of stuff. So it's got all the RLT stuff on there. But take it, make it your own, and kind of get this in front of your clients. Like I said, this is the most important thing you'll do, especially if we're talking about showing value, where you have a client potentially getting ready to pay you large sums of money. Okay. Any questions on how I handle that? Good. That's incredible. Yeah, Brian.
So if you have a first-time home buyer, right? Pretty tight on cash.
Correct.
How do you have that conversation? Right. It's one thing if like you've helped them multiple times, they've bought houses, had a great job, got your guys straight out of college. How do you approach that?
Same way, just I'm gonna be clear, honest, transparent with you. I said some sellers are going to offer 3%, in which case it doesn't cost you a thing. Other people are going to offer that, and said we can also increase the price of our offer. We're gonna also ask that we get paid 3% in the contract. And it'd be only offering 2%, but we may ask for 3%, maybe to adjust our price to finance that in there instead of having you come out of pocket on top of that. So there's ways around it. That's gonna be kind of in flux, and you have to figure that out. Every situation is gonna be different. Okay, but you want to let them know I'm here to protect you. So that's the kind of the value we're adding. So I use the analogy of would you walk into court without a lawyer? I'm not trying to get thrown in jail. I went in for a speeding ticket one time. I went and I was kind of like, there's a chance I got thrown in jail. I was down in Hopewell, $1 million mile. I said I was going too fast. I think I was going too fast. So it was my opponent early getting a speeding ticket. Because I wasn't preparing to get there 15 minutes early. So always arrive early too. Yeah, you don't want to show up to court and potentially have, what are the risks, right? You know, has Steve here heard a horror story about real estate transaction before? All right, we got a bunch of newbies in here because you haven't heard horror stories, so it's hard to talk to the person next to you. There's horror stories all over the place, okay? We are here to protect the client in their best interest, and that does cost money. Okay, and hopefully we're having the seller pay for that, but there's no guarantee that they do. If it comes to a point where you can't afford it, and so you got to be in contact with the lender as well. I've done one with Nate where we had one where it's going to be a 2% on the buyer side commission is what was being offered. I have a 3% buyer limit signed. I have Nate kind of fill in, hey, your cash to close is going to be X now with the additional 1% going to the agent. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Being upfront and honest with people, and having, this is not the simplest conversation. If you have it as one of the first talking points, it's kind of it's settled. It's not an issue. If they know what's going on, they're there to protect them. So we want to make them feel warm, comfortable, and know that we're going to be looking out for their best interest, which is our job at the end of the day. Now it's just a matter of who is paying us to do that. So things do cost money. Tips as an analogy too. I mean, feel free to use that, steal that. But if you're paying 20% for a coffee, I think 3% is a pretty damn good deal for protecting you to buy a house. Okay. Any questions on any of those other misconceptions? Sweet. All right, real estate roster. This is how we operate. Maybe a little different if you're working on your own. So me, I'm their RLT realtor on here. So we have a transaction coordinator named Justin. Once we go under contract, a lot of that stuff gets passed off to him as far as the paperwork and coordination between the rest of the people on this list, including the lending team. See Nate Smith back here handles a lot of my files for me personally. So Nate is kind of the captain of the financing side of things. He also has processing, underwriters, closers. They're going to be involved as well. So the big takeaway of this page is there's a lot of people involved. All right, we want to let them know that, hey, I am the captain of the ship. I'm going to make sure everyone's staying in contact, everything's in line, and protecting you the entire way. You also have your settlement team. I said MG Wall, Joe Franny, Shane Frick for a lot of my closings. Let them know they're going to handle all the additional paperwork, make sure everything's legally taken care of, and the house goes into their name at the very end of it. Once again, a lot of people involved, a lot of coordination. Inspector, I let them know, hey, this is a third party. They are not really involved in the transaction. They are paid the day of the inspection, perform the inspection, provide you with a report. And then from that point, they are kind of exiting the transaction, and we've got to negotiate with the seller on that. If they're getting a loan, they'll be required to get homeowners insurance, so we have connections for that as well. Also, people know I have great referral partners. If you need any of these people, if you have your own people, that's completely fine with me. But if we have like a home inspector, we need to make sure it's like a licensed inspector, not, Uncle John, who, is a contractor, who's gotta write everything down on a yellow piece of legal pad. That doesn't quite count, so we make sure we have the proper people going out there to, make sure we're checking everything out. Homeowner insurance just touched on that. Lastly, the other team, I also like to touch on this, quite a bit. This is not a fight. We have a seller who wants to sell, and we have a buyer who wants to buy. Our job as agents is to get them to the finish line, make sure everyone's protected, knows what they're signing, so this is not a fight. We're not in the, I hate the seller, oh my God, they're assholes. That's not what it's about, okay? We wanna make sure that we are working our way through all this stuff, finding creative solutions to complicated problems, on there. But at the end of the day, seller wants to sell, buyer wants to buy. It's our job as agents to hold everything together and make sure everyone's good to go, okay? Any questions on that? Love it. Purchasing pathway, steps 1 through 10 of how we purchase a home. Number 1, pre-qualified. Emphasize this enough already, don't need to really go over that, but if they're not pre-qualified, the appointment's canceled. So, number 2, initial appointment. That's when we'll be sitting down and going over this packet and finishing with getting them set up on the search. The next step is to go out and schedule showings and view homes. I also like to bring buyers into the office. If they were sellers getting ready to sell their house, we want to talk about buying as well. Sometimes, before we got to look at houses, if they need to sell their house first, that is step kind of, 2A, and 2B would be going to look at houses after that. So you gotta kind of know the order of operations as far as what people can or cannot go do. Once we have the green light from the lender, we will actually go out and look at houses. Number 3, once we, number 4, once we write the offer, negotiate the terms of the contract ratified. Ratification is written agreement between buyer and seller. That means all I's dotted, all T's crossed by all parties involved. Until we have that, it is not an official contract. It doesn't mean anything. Words don't mean anything in this business. Pen and paper and autographs do. Okay. So just because we have something verbally agreed upon doesn't mean we go celebrate and party, and then next you know somebody else came over and all cash off $2,000 above us, or kicked to the curb. We need to have all the paperwork signed, have it delivered to everybody before we start hooping and hollering and having a good time. All right. Once we get the contract ratified, we have 3 spots on here which are bolded and underlined. That is when money is going to be due up front prior to closing. Okay. We want to make sure people know when they're going to have stuff coming out of their pockets. First of which is going to be the earnest money deposits, and EMD. That is paid to Hometown Realty in almost all cases. With that, you can also do that online now, or it can be a regular personal check. I'm a big personal check guy there. Some people like doing the online stuff. I'm just not a computer person. But yeah, I think it charges an extra $10, $15 to do that. Sometimes that's just simpler, easier to find, to kind of eating that fee. We want to make sure that gets turned in a timely manner. I know Rodney speaks to this all the time. We need to have that turned in within the time frame allocated in the contract. Okay, you say 3 days, that needs to be turned in to the office within 3 days. If it's on day 4, you need to notify the listing side that, hey, check has not been turned in yet. It's not a gigantic deal. We want to make sure we're on top of that and people are ready to go. All right. Also by letting people know this up front, if they don't have physical checks, they can either be prepared to get them, or they can go with the online route. Also, we want to make sure on this, talking with lenders, we can't have like a money order for this. We actually have to see money coming from account A going into the Hometown escrow account. It cannot be a money order, or it cannot be cash. So we gotta try to avoid little things like that throw a giant wrench into stuff. This is all simple things, but we don't want to have hurdles unnecessarily to be able to jump over. All right. Loan application. Within 7 days of going under contract, you'll officially apply for your loan. Okay, that's done with the lender. That's when they'll finish up the rest of, finish up credit score stuff. They'll be make sure that we get interest rates and everything like that locked in, and formally applying for the loan, getting all the rest of the documentation needed over to the lender. Get that done as soon as possible. I let people know, hey, we have 7 days, but we still want to do it. If we get it done on day 1 or day 2, get it done on day 1 or day 2. Don't wait till the last second on this stuff. Everyone's trying to get things done. Everyone's got time frames. The sooner we get stuff done, the smoother transactions are. All right. Property inspection, 0 to 14 days. We have 0 in there because people still waive inspections from time to time. Then usually kind of 14 days is usually right around the cap as far as that goes, as far as how long we can really do that. You'll have that time period to get any and all inspections on the property you'd like to. Within the time frame, then we will request, we'll pass over all the reports and then send our request for repairs or credit over to the other side to negotiate that out. We'll have 7 days once we submit our addendum over to them to get everything kind of finalized, negotiated out, to make sure we're in the right shape and everyone's agreed upon and moving forward, okay? Inspection, as I already mentioned, out-of-pocket cost up front, due to the inspector day of the inspection, okay? So we let them know when money is due up front. Next is the appraisal. Everyone know what appraisal is? Okay, bank, make sure we're paying the right value for the house. I would let people know that as real estate agents, we kind of perform our own appraisal on the property by one, seeing it, checking it out in person with the client, and then 2, running comparables, running comps, making sure that the price does line up in the right area of what it should be. If we're looking at houses that are 4 beds, 2.5 baths in a certain elementary school district, we want to check out all the other ones that are 4 beds, 2.5 baths that are sold. Appraisers don't care about active listings. They don't really care about pending listings. They want to see closed listings in the last 6 months. So that's where we want to kind of make sure that the price we're paying for whatever the house is, we want to make sure it's kind of in that general realm of the price range of all the other ones surrounding it, okay? That's also an upfront cost. I believe that's a credit card. Maybe they take that at loan application time or?
Typically when appraisal is ordered, we'll send over very much like deposit link. We don't do checks anymore really. We can.
Just
but,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, that's also an upfront cost. So I mean, a lot of times, I let people know for the earnest money deposit, expect $1,000 up to 1%. If you put down more, it makes you look a little bit stronger. Let's just say we're looking at a $300,000 house, expect a $3,000 earnest money deposit. Expect I just round up $500 for property inspection, $500 for appraisal. You're out of pocket $4,000 before you go to closing. So just make sure they're aware of that. That's not a small chunk of change for a lot of people, especially if I'm about first-time home buyers. So make sure they're aware of what's going to be out of pocket up front. Okay. Next, once we get through the property inspection and the appraisal, those are our 2 big hurdles on the buyer side of the transaction. Once we go through that, we're kind of entering to what we call preparing for closing. This is where we're making sure if there's any repairs, we're collecting receipts for any repairs that were done, make sure everything's verified, make sure we're reminding them to turn the Dominion account on. We don't want them moving in with no power, no water when they're trying to do everything, especially when it's 100 degrees outside. I want to make sure we've got some AC going on that. Any sort of HOA stuff, we pass along any of those sort of miscellaneous things, make sure we're getting homeowner insurance taken care of, lined up, and everything is getting over to the lender. They need to get done. Nate calls me from time to time and say, hey, I'm not getting a whole lot of communication coming back from Brian. I need you to kind of, step on his toes a little bit and make sure he gets his paperwork turned over. That is our job. So we are, kind of got to take responsibility on this. We got to be the captain of the ship, make sure that we're getting all this stuff done. To the end of the day, it all kind of falls on us if things don't get delayed or get closing. Obviously, we can't be turning stuff in for them, but we can definitely let them know that, hey, you're at risk of losing your deposit, you're at risk of screwing the deal up, delaying closing. We need to get this stuff done, and it's kind of it's on them to get it done, but it's on us to make sure that they are on top of it. All right. Final figure, final walkthrough. We will get the CD, the closing disclosure. That'll be coming out to them. That's going to be the accounting of all the money in the entire transaction. If they're using a loan, if they are paying it all cash, they'll get a HUD-1 settlement statement, which is much shorter, simpler. But the CD will have all the accounting of the entire transaction listed out. They have to review that 3 business days prior to closing to make sure the numbers are in line with what they were expecting from their original loan estimate. Okay. Once they approve that, we'll kind of have the green light to go to closing, and also let them know there's always last second paperwork that needs to be turned in, additional documentation may be required. Let them know that right now, here today, and kind of throughout the transaction. That's why we also make sure we're staying on top of them. But every now and then, when the underwriters have to send it off to who they're selling the loan to, those people may have additional questions. They may need the same piece of paperwork you've already submitted. It's extremely frustrating. Let people know, grit your teeth, get through it, send it over to them, be prepared, be ready to go, be organized, and things will get to the closing table. So, but there's always little last second things and adjustments that happen. Keep in mind, there's usually over 100 and some people involved in the transaction, between lenders, attorneys, insurance people. All the people got to be coordinated and be ready to kind of jump on the same day. Also, the closing date is a target date, but we can't just go willy-nilly, hey, we want to move up closing a day. Now you got to get 100 people to all jump at the same time. They all have everything set for tomorrow. If they want to try to close today, it's not as simple as just like, hey, we take the paperwork signed. A lot of people have to be involved to change it up, even just for a single day. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so setting expectations with clients is the best thing you can possibly do. Closing time, like I said, we let them know that there's a target date, things do get delayed, sometimes it's not, you don't have your mover lined, you're planning on closing at 10 a.m., don't have your mover lined up for 11 a.m. That's wait a day, okay? Is my suggestion on that, take a day, drive stuff, you drive over to your car, move it, on the closing day, have your actual mover lined up for a day or two after that, just to ensure that we don't have any, if there are any delays, we're not screwing up everything else after that, okay? There's lots of that can be out of our control. We're waiting on for people to jump at the same time. If not everyone's jumping at the same time, then we can have some minor delays on that, okay? Closing time, which we'll actually sit down, this is about 30 to 45 days, usually between when you sign the ratified contract and the time you actually go close on the property. All right? Sounds like the paper's this thick, sucks, you gotta sign everything, that's when the rest of your money is due. If it's over $25,000, it's gotta be wired, it cannot be a cashier's check, it's gotta actually be, it can't be a purchase check, it can be a cashier's check if it's less than $25,000, but anything above that needs to be wired, okay? Wiring is also, I don't know how people can Venmo and it appears in 10 seconds, but when you wire money, it takes 3-4 hours, everyone's like, where did that giant lump sum of money go? It hasn't arrived at the attorney's office yet, people freak out, let them know, do the day before, wire more money than you need to. That way, if it's, make sure it's there at the attorney's office for when you actually go to close. If there's any overages or anything like that, they'll cut you a check and write you the difference back. Okay? All right, these next two pages are kind of the lending pages, the big giant stop sign page. These are things that we like to, especially with first-time home buyers and people who don't have a ton in the bank, we want to make sure we're not doing anything that's going to screw up the loan. All right. Changing banks, moving our money around. They want to see patterns and habits. They don't want to see us having all of our money at Wells Fargo for the past 10 years and changing over to Chase Bank, during the middle of this whole transaction. Patterns and habits. Deposit cash. You try to make a little joke on this is like our drug dealer rule. They can't verify where the money comes from, you can't use it. So if you have the giant sock drawer or the money under the bed, don't go deposit that. You can't verify where it comes from. All it does is just raise red flags and questions. All right. Don't want to be closing credit card accounts or applying for new credit of any kind. Anytime you open or close any sort of credit line, it does affect your credit score. If we have people who are right at 700 and they open a Home Depot credit card for $100 to buy their appliances, and that changes their credit score to 697, and that puts them into a different bracket as far as interest rates go, that changes the entire loan. We had somebody do that 8 years ago. And all this stuff is from experience. People have done all this stuff. It's, and even people who have read the stage have done this stuff too. We want to try to be as clear as possible on this. I look at this as like a safety net. It's like, hey, remember when we went over all this stuff and you just didn't pay attention, but all this stuff was going over. So we don't want to fail to disclose any financial or credit information over to the lender. That's not saying because they're going to lie to them. That's just saying that, hey, get it all in the open up front, and that way we can continue moving forward. If they have additional accounts, let the lender know. They may not need anything from it, but we don't want to be seeing money transferred from personal checking to a savings account or something like that. They're going to want to know what's that account where money's going to. They're looking at every single sort of transaction as they're going through your bank transfers. Okay? Major purchases. Hold off on buying furniture, appliances. Big one is cars. I've had people, go get a car loan while they're under contract on a house. Not only is that pretty much changing, that's touching almost all these things in the Don't Do It page. We're applying for new credit. We're taking out a new loan balance. Those are all things that kind of affect what we're trying to do. We're trying to get loans to the closing table. Don't go changing your job during the middle of this process. If you plan on quitting your job, quit 2 weeks after you're supposed to close. Once you close, you can put your 2 weeks in. They're going to call to verify you're still employed. Sometimes the day of closing, so verification of employment. If I just had this happen a couple weeks ago with a 6-time repeat client, teacher, and then just kind of jumped ship and decided she's daughter had a heart defect and she needed to stay home with her. She put like her 2 weeks in. Fully understandable. She's also in the middle of, she goes to close the house in 2 weeks. You need to have a job in order to pay the loan. That's going to get verified. We need to make sure we're still employed during that. And this is also, if you get a promotion or you get a job change in the same industry, not that big of a deal. If you're going from a salary position to a sales position, where you don't know if you have a guaranteed paycheck or you have a base salary with commission on top of that. You know, they can only really factor in the base salary. If you are on commission sales, they usually need 2 years of sales history, not just 2 like actual years, like 2 years tax returns on that. If you have, you know, year one, if you're in real estate, year one isn't, you know, best you could ever possibly imagine. You know, say you sold 5 houses, you made 25 grand. Next year, you sell 25 houses and make 150 grand. That gets averaged. Okay, so it's not, hey, I just had a great year, had a ton of money in the bank, that's wonderful. But year one sucked. Gets averaged out, yeah, that's all to be factored in. So this is where the upfront conversations with lenders is extremely important. Down at the very bottom, not sure. Ask your lender about anything you may be unsure about before you go buy appliances or a car or anything else that's kind of abnormal. You have a giant repair or a medical bill, anything that may potentially pop up. Is this going to screw up my loan? Better be safe than sorry on this. I'm big at asking for forgiveness on a lot of things, but this is one of the ones we want to make sure we are upfront about to make sure we don't screw something up, delay things. There's a lot of time frames involved in all this sort of stuff. Make sure we're doing the right thing. Check with your lender if it's any out of the ordinary by any means. I will make note too, Venmo transactions, Cash App, whatever third-party stuff people are using, they do need access to that. If you have a bunch of transfers going back and forth, they see Venmo on your bank account all the time, they're gonna see your Venmo transcripts on that. So just know that they may be asking or requiring for that. All right. Loan process, next page. I won't bore you on this one a whole lot. Nate does that all the time for us and all the other lenders, but pre-approval, basic information. Loan applications, we didn't actually formally apply for the loan. Processors, one, make sure there's kind of no giant red flags, anything outstanding. Underwriters, going to make sure you can actually repay the loan. Appraisal is lumped in there as well, and then the closing department coordinates with those attorneys to make sure everything is in line, everything down to the penny. So, I think this is boring. The loan stuff is not a whole lot of fun. The more organized you are, the quicker you get stuff to the lender, the less issues you have. So just be clean, organized up front, and things tend to go fairly smoothly. All right, next page. How we schedule showings. I'm pretty simple, text message. I like to get them to text me the MLS number. I can't stand when people text me the actual address of the house because I'm not using the street names around a lot of places. I can't spell half or pronounce half of them, so please send me the MLS number. It's the easiest way for me to look that up on there. I asked them to try to give as much heads up as possible on this. Also asked them to turn off all their third-party searches. MLS is out there for a reason. We are all realtors for a reason. That's why we were signed up. Hometown, we use RAR, we use MLS system. All these other third-party websites pull everything directly from our system. Okay, I can't tell how many times I've had people walk in at a townhouses back here in Wyndham, 2 beds, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. I had so many people walk through. Where's the 3rd full bathroom? To me, it's like, well, I know that you found this house on Zillow because Zillow rounds 2.5 up to 3. It's not 3 full baths, it's 2.5. Okay, we want to make sure we get the real, live, accurate information. So that's why we asked them to turn off these searches. So you want to not sift through the same 7,500 houses that kind of pop up on your search. Guess what? My portal has a trash can button. So the houses you don't want to look at for 1,000 times every time you log in, you can remove from your search. That's kind of nice, right? Talk about eliminating. We want to eliminate that stuff. Get rid of it. We don't need them to see the same house 1,000 times and click on it every time they log in. All right, throw it in the trash can. I like to also share a couple stories on this one too. I used the one back here about the 2.5 to 3 bathrooms. Also, I beat people out on houses because I get it real live on MLS. I'm clued into their search. It takes hours, sometimes days, to pop up onto Zillow. So I've had stuff where I've gotten under contract within an hour or 2 hours of it hitting the market. That's how fast you kind of need to be in some of these scenarios, some of these situations. So make sure you're prepared, ready to go. But if someone's doing their main searching through, Zillow, Trulia, websites out there, they're going to be behind the 8 ball, and we're going to beat them to the punch. So just let them know that up front. They're still going to probably still search on some of those websites. I usually get people like a 1 or 2 time, like Grace, they send me a house. Hey, why is this house on my mom sent me this house. Well, that house is, asbestos siding. We eliminated that from your search. You said we don't want that, right? Oh, okay, yeah, all right. Please get off Zillow. What I do is just drill it right in your head, so it's up, so it's up, so it's up. Alright? Just a couple notes on here. Only go look at houses if you're ready to buy. Okay? We are not window shoppers. We're not just going to do this just for fun. We need to have serious buyers. And once you start looking, you're going to want to buy. If you're not prepared to buy, you're going to be disappointed. Okay? If you don't have, you're not pre-qualified, you're not, you don't have all your ducks in a row, you don't know what your plan is. We got to be prepared when you're working with buyers. Prepared. All right? Ask them to try to drive by if they have the opportunity to drive by. Do that. I can tell you times we get to a house and they're like, hey, this house looks great, but next door neighbor is a junkyard. Okay, well, you could have done that by driving by instead. I've taken time out of my day and said, I could be prospecting right now instead of getting to a house and showing up and like, I'm not interested in this one because the lot sucks, or there's trash can, there's people are trashy neighbors, or the fence falling down, the house is next door dilapidated. That can be done with a simple drive-by. Try to drive by before we go actually schedule the showing. All right. Also, when we get them set up on the search, go drive through all these neighborhoods. If you have matches that are popping up in certain neighborhoods, their job is kind of go out there and start looking at stuff. There may not be a whole lot of houses that kind of make sense, but if the exact house may not be a fit for them, but if that's the same bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, same school districts they want to be in, go drive through there. That way, when a house pops up in that neighborhood, you kind of already have a good idea. I like this neighborhood, or I don't like this neighborhood. Simple. So we're working on eliminating the entire time. All right. Anybody have questions on that page? How we kind of schedule? Anything like that? All right. I'm getting sweet today. All right. Home inspection. These are coming back, I feel like. You guys kind of seen some shifts in the market, but we're not seeing as many wave inspections out there. I'm getting ready to negotiate one of these when I finish up this. On here, but we can only ask for defects, not cosmetic flaws. If something is old, but it's working properly, that's not what we can ask for. Okay, if you find a HVAC system that's on year 20, but it's still pumping out cold air, it's still fine, it's still functioning. You just gotta let them know, hey, this is kind of past its expected lifespan. Be prepared, this could go out next month, or it could last another 3, 4, 5, 10 years in some cases. Okay. I have seen heat pumps as old as 40 years old. So one from 1980, a couple of years ago, on a brick rancher over in Lakeside. It was still pumping cold air. And yeah, that was sold at the house last year ago. She still hasn't replaced it, so it's still pumping cold air. So stuff was built maybe a little bit better back then, but you also need to kind of know the ages, how long do things typically last. The HVAC system is now kind of, once you get past year 8, be prepared because it may go out. All the other things are going to last 10, 15, 20 years. Roofs, you got to notice between a 3-tab shingle and a dimensional shingle. Those things kind of point out based on the age of the house, it should be on that second roof. You kind of need to know some of those numbers to advise your clients properly on all that stuff. But we cannot ask for stuff that is just old. It's got to be defective. Same thing, cosmetic flaws. You get a little sediment crack, going 45 degrees above a door. We're not stopping a home sale for a sediment crack. That's in just about every house. I just built my house a year ago. We got a bunch of little sediment cracks. They're all going to get touched up. So those are things we're not going to fret about. I use the analogy on this page talking about used cars. If we're buying a house that's built in 1995. It's a used house. If you bought a house built in 2018, it's a used house. Cars, dings, dents, leaks. We want to make sure all the main components are working properly on this. If they're not, we have the ability to kind of ask them to, hey, either repair or replace those. But it's really just kind of opportunity to have a health check on the house. We want to know how old are our systems, what do we need to budget for in the next couple of years. I let people know also there's going to be mold in the crawl space. I just had a house we kind of did a free list, crawl space clean out. It's got the inspection back. There's still mold in the crawl space. Just they're going to find it every single time. I tell people about 85% of houses you're going to find some sort of mold mildew in there. People freak out about stuff like that. If you tell them here right now, we live in Virginia. It's 100 degrees today. It's 58 at night. We hasn't rained ever last month, it feels like. But we're going to have mold, mildew, humidity changes, stuff like this. Your HVAC system and your air handling in the crawl space is constantly condensating. It's dripping off the ductwork. That's moisture in a hot environment that creates the mold mildew. It's going to be there, prep them on it, not a big deal. And go down there and wipe it off with Clorox rag if you want to. That'll essentially kill it if you expect to find it. All right, taking care of a lot of these kind of big things up front is really just making the process smoother for you throughout the entire way. You prep them on all this sort of stuff, they're not gonna be surprised when it pops up. They're like, oh yeah, Kevin told me to expect that. And it's kind of a non-issue, not a giant sticking point. We're talking about, $1,000, $2,000 of crawl space, cleanup, as I said, which is gonna be on just about every single house. Any questions on home inspection stuff? We do whole classes on that as well, so just look out for those as they come up. Got additional questions after class.
Quick question, Kevin.
Yep, Harold.
Line 3 and 4, common competitive contract terms, line item minimum. I'm similar land houses, I'm not familiar with that.
We're gonna go right here, one second.
Okay, fine.
Go ahead, game, Harold. Go ahead. So, common contract verbiage, this is when we're in competitive situations. Do the next page here. On price, for competitive, with multiple offers on it, we can put an escalation clause, which essentially says the offer price is $300, but we're willing to go up to $326, $250 on this one. And we'll beat the next highest offer by $2,000. All right, that way, if the next highest offer comes in at $310, we get the house for $312. I don't like going up to round numbers or in increments of 10 or 5. I always try to go in increments of 6,000, 11,000, something like that. And people tend to use round numbers. So if a house is 310, or if they're going to do 320, we're going to do 322, random number just in case. Actually had a girl from high school who was not the brightest of all people in high school. That was actually her idea not to use that, and I gave her credit every single time I say it. So I won't say her name because somebody probably know.
Does that escalation clause and verbiage like the highest, $2,000 over the highest?
Highest competing offer, they need to provide you with a copy of at least the first page of the next highest competing offer.
Does it say non-contingent offer?
It does not, it's highest competing offer.
Okay.
So like I said, and that's something you gotta try to navigate and figure out. And I said, I'm also asking a ton of questions to the listing agent anytime I'm writing offers. Trying to dig and find as much information as possible to make sure my client is writing a good offer. We're actually writing offers. The communication is the most important part. You're not only building rapport with the other agent, you want to you can communicate, you know what you talk about, you know what you're doing. They want a smooth, simple, easy transaction for their seller. They don't want to be dealing with somebody who has the contract comes in, there's missing check boxes, everything else. We talked about putting contracts together before in the contract writing class with Cindy, but make sure you get it right and call them what closing dates you want to have. All those, what appliances convey. My goal for every offer I write is I don't want to come back with any sort of markups. I want to know exactly what the seller wants. That way I can have that discussion with my buyer as long as they're agreeable to everything. And we're putting in front of them a simple, smooth, easy, clean contract. So if we have to scratch out 14 different things, that's not only a pain to do and instant and authenticide, but it's just a lot more work, it's a lot more hassle. A lot of stuff can be cleared up over the phone, communication between agents. Okay, show you can communicate. That's going to be even more important. Here with the lawsuit stuff, we have to kind of call and find out, hey, what are you offering on the buyer side compensation? Okay, I'll be able to find out is this agent worth it or not too. All right, so just make sure that we are communicating clearly and effectively throughout this process with the other side. Earnest money deposit, the more money you put down, the stronger you look. Simple as that. In the contracts, and you'll go with you. And pretty much every paragraph, it says, if anything were to fall through, the deposit refund to purchaser in full. Always gonna let them know, I'll always tell them if we're ever at risk of losing our deposit and something like this, I'm gonna be sure to let you know on here to make sure we're kind of protected. But I've had one client lose a deposit in 12 years. That was an older couple that bought a 2-story home, went on vacation to a 2-story home with all their kids and grandkids, and then they were coming from a rancher, and it's like, oh my God, we can't do steps. Too many steps. We were a week away from closing. We had no contractual outs in the contract. We had to forfeit our deposit and walk away. But outside of that, you should be pretty good. You need to know the contract, so make sure you attend Cindy's classes on that. Next, inspection. I have these ranked in kind of in order of what's gonna be the most, attractive to a seller. Waived inspection, no inspection. For the seller, that's what you're looking for. That's pretty simple, easy, clean, correct? All right, good deal there. I always let my buyers know, I never advise them to waive an inspection. All right, it's up to them at the end of the day. My job is to help them get as much information as possible to help make a good informed decision. It's their call on it. Some houses are more worthy of waived inspection than others. I found a fun fact from a structural engineer recently. If looking at houses that were built pre-1930, those are usually very well-built, constructed houses. What happened kind of in the late 20s? Great Depression. People didn't have any money. People weren't using the same things. They're slapping stuff together best they can. They're skimping out here and there. So I see houses that are built in kind of the 30s and early 40s, sometimes up to the 50s. It's kind of like, hey, we might want to make sure we get structural inspections, or even stuff too. You look like way back when you look at Churchill. There's houses I've walked up and the stairs go like this. You see doorways where they're really shifted all over the place. Those are ones, especially the older houses, we want to make sure that we are definitely having a thorough inspection on that, but just pick up little tidbits here and there. Always go to the inspections, try to follow the inspector around, especially if you're newer. That's where you get to learn about houses. You need to know the product you are selling. You need to know the difference between a electric hot water heater and a gas hot water heater. A tankless one and a tank hot water. You be able to point all that sort of stuff out. It's all knowledge you can pass on to your buyers. It shows competence and make sure that they feel protected and going into the house. All right. Inspection for informational purposes only. The way we tend to do this one is we can have an inspection, but we write in there so our deposit is non-refundable. So if we decide to walk away, the seller is keeping our deposit. All right. Line item minimum. Some people will do this as like a lump sum, like the line item minimum. That way it's more individual repairs. Saying that, hey, I'm not going to ask for any repairs that are $500 or less. I'm not going to ask for any repairs that are $1,000 or less, or $2,500 or less. Kind of depending what you need to do on that to make sure the seller feels comfortable and the buyer feels comfortable. We talked about the used car analogy, dings, dents, leaks, but want to make sure the engine, the power steering, all kinds of main components of the car are working properly. For a house, and Tommy had said, roof, windows, siding, HVAC, crawl space, what else we got? Those 5. Yep. So those are kind of our main components of the house. If those are all in really good shape, they've all been replaced, they're newer, then that's something where it's kind of like, hey, anything else outside of this should be fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. Keep in mind, when buying a used house, there's always going to be stuff that needs to be done, that gets broken, that needs to get fixed, that cracks. It's part of home ownership, okay? On there, but we're gonna say we're gonna eliminate stuff. Harold, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're not gonna get nickel and dime over the loose doorknobs and the light bulbs and all the kind of little stuff that should not really be a true factor in deciding if you're going to move forward on the house or not. If you're willing to walk away over a loose doorknob or a light bulb being out, then you shouldn't be in the market for buying a house, or that's a really difficult client to work with, and you need to have a real honest conversation with them about how all this stuff works. All right. As is addendum, I like these, sellers do not like these. For as is, you can have all your inspections, it becomes just a yes or no. Do you want to move forward? Yes or no. You have 10 days to get that figured out. Keep in mind with this that the buyer has unilateral ability to walk away from the contract. The seller has no recourse. The way our contract is written, you need to, when you submit a repair, you can't just walk away once you have that little optional checkbox checked off. But you have to allow the seller the ability to kind of fix any issues, repairs that need to be done. You can't just say, hey, this house has too many issues, I'm walking away. You need to put it on an addendum. We're asking for every single tiny thing on there. If you want to get out, there's ways to kind of get out and make it a giant pain on the seller they usually never agree to on there. But you need to know with this one as is, you can just walk away. So sellers do not love this one just because you can just say, hey, it's got this doorknob, I'm out of here. All right. Appraisal. You can waive the appraisal, meaning that you're paying whatever the contract calls for. If you went up $50,000 above and the appraisal comes in at the original list price, the buyer is responsible for making up that difference in cash. All right. The lender is only going to lend them whatever the appraised value is. So if you waive that, they need to be prepared in the event that it comes in low, you have the cash to kind of backfill that amount. Okay. And that's a conversation with the lender. They can run different scenarios with you. Hey, if order coming low, what's my cash out of pocket going to be? Maybe you need to reduce your, your 10% down payment to 7.5% down, and then you're filling the rest of it back up that way. So, net. Appraisal gap would be you're agreeing to, $5, $10, $15,000 upfront if the appraisal were to come in low. If the appraisal comes in and say we have a $10,000 appraisal gap clause, to scenario, let's just say that we got the house listed at 300, we got it for 350. We said we pay $10,000 above the appraised value if it comes in short. That means if the appraisal comes in at 310, versus you telling the seller, hey, we're paying $10,000 above that appraised value, so we'll pay 320 for it. Seller does not have to accept that. Okay, that's all got to be still signed off on. Just because you kind of agreed to it up front, the seller still needs to sign off on that, especially if it's not kind of hitting their minimum number on there. If it comes in really low, just know that just because you agreed to pay $10,000 over, that's still got to be put on an addendum. Send it over to the seller still says we need that sign off on it, we're going to move forward. Okay. All right. Other points of negotiation, I always like to make note for people: fireplace, chimneys, flues, sheds, garages, almost always convey as is. A lot of times people have never turned their fireplace on. They never use it. They're just saying, hey, if something wrong with it, I don't know anything about it, I never use it, I'm not going to fix it. Okay. Same thing, sheds, garages, they are not, I look at, you're buying the house, the shed's an add-on. If it's a shed from, you have a 3-tab shingle, which is supposed to last 20, 25 years, if that's that on a house, on a shed, it lasts, 10. Shingles start crawling up, there's no HVAC in there, they kind of get brittle, break, so those don't last nearly as long. Sellers usually say, hey, that's all conveying as is. If you want to, go to Home Depot and buy a pack of shingles and reshingle it, go for it after the fact, but they are not going to be doing that. Seller concessions, I am big on asking for credit instead of repairs. I would much rather have my clients hire their contractor to get stuff done the way they want to get it done by someone they trust, rather than the seller being it done as inexpensively or cheaply as possible. Prior to closing, we always ask for, the licensed contractor to fix stuff, but if I can take money off of stuff, I'd rather do that. Simple, cleaner, don't worry about re-inspections, don't have to worry about going back and verifying repairs are done, and then you get a kissing match between the contractor and the home inspector of, this isn't done exactly the way I wanted it. Well, the contractor supersedes what the inspector says. Buyers believe what their inspector says, because buyers want to check it out. Inspectors know a lot of things, they don't know everything. So they always think it's deferred to the qualified licensed professional and what their opinion of it is. So, but to avoid all that sort of stuff, ask for money. Simple, easier, and they can hire whoever they want to. Some stuff you can ask for money for, it may not need to be fixed tomorrow, it may need to be fixed in 2 years. We'll have to save them X amount of dollars at the closing table, and do a Rockstar on it. So, and it's just simpler, easier all the way around. So if you can do that, I highly suggest it. HOAs, you'll have 3 days to review the HOA documents. If there's anything in there that you would not want to move forward on the house, then you have the ability to essentially someone walk away, correct, and another changing that a little bit, or can you waive the HOA
We
stuff?
now can waive the 3-day right to rescind.
Okay, so can do that. Have that conversation with the buyers, make sure they kind of know what they're getting into. HOAs have a lot of rules on there, so just make sure they're comfortable with everything. Contingencies, if they need to sell their house, that needs to be in the contract. If we can also ask, like, if it's got well and septic, you can also ask the as buyers, you can offer to pay for the well and septic inspection instead of having the seller pay for it. These are all the termite inspections, $100. I always say the termite inspection on there in a competitive situation, we will take the $100 cost off of the seller. Sometimes that becomes the separator. We're talking about a $500,000 house, the $100 termite inspection becomes what gets us the deal versus somebody else. So that close. Try to put all the stops. This is all pretty simple stuff at the end of the day. Rent backs, if they need to stay in the house longer, then they have that ability to. All right, and that all can be negotiated out for free. It can be whatever the payment is. That's all negotiable. All right. Last page here. 3 client responsibilities. Number 1 sounds very corny, but I love it. Is don't stress out. This should be a fun process. We're prepared. We're ready to go. Now we can kind of become reactive. When a house pops up, we should be excited. We should be ready to go check it out. Also, if we lose stuff, it's okay. It's a competitive situation. Especially we're working, trying first-time home buyers. You may be prepared to lose 4, 5, 6 times before you get the house that works for you. But if you stop, then guess what? You never get the house. You got to continue going. It can be stressful, but we want to try to take as much stress off of that as possible. We want to stay positive throughout the entire transaction as well. Number 2 is make great decisions. I'm not going to be living in the house with you, so I tell all my clients. It is 100% your call. I'm here to give you as much information as possible to help you make a good informed decision, but you're the one signing the paper, you're the one signing the check, you're going to be the one living there. I want to make sure you're comfortable moving forward on everything. I still, Nate's line, we're here to kind of guide, advise you through this process to make sure that you feel good about what you're getting into, you're prepared, you know what's going on. Lastly, refer to your friends and family. If you think this is a good experience, I'm not here to help you, get into a house. All I ask for from you, we don't do any cold calling, door knocking, anything like that. All we do is put our heads down, go to work for you, and hope to earn the business of your friends, family, and coworkers, anybody else you know. I always try to ask for a referral at this point as well. Who else do you know that's going to be entering into the housing market, or if you got parents with them? Hey, who else do you know is getting here from the downsizing from your neighborhood? Asking those questions all the time. We have down here how you refer. I really appreciate if you could connect us on text message, give me a call, the name, number, contact info, reach out to them, make sure they're taken care of. All right. We do a lot of client appreciation program stuff. We do monthly mailers. We do client parties. We just had a squirrels event. We're doing a pig roast at Oaklawn in October. We're inviting all of our past clients. Doing ice cream social for back to school stuff at our office in August. These little events are also just reasons to kind of reach out. Everything in this packet doesn't mean anything if you got new buyers running around with. And that's why you have to make sure you prospect the entire time too. When you get to a point where you have 5, 6, 10 transactions going at a time, you're taking care of all that sort of stuff, you need to find time to prospect, because guess what happens? All those transactions close, they fall apart, whatever may happen with them. Now you gotta start all over. And a lot of times your prospect, you don't see results for 3, 6 months, okay? So right now, it's awesome seeing all you guys in here getting better. There's a lot of agents that are at the beach, vacation, hot outside, whatever else they want to go do. Watch what happens to them in 3, 6 months. Okay, they're really going to be struggling. So make sure you're showing up every day. My motto has always been work when others won't. Summertime, it's hot, it's not a ton of fun. I'd rather be out doing other things. I guess I love real estate, so that's what I like to do. Every single day brings me a lot of joy, brings my clients a lot of joy. It's fun seeing smiles on people's faces at the very end of all this process. But if you take care of your people, they will take care of you long term. And then kind of going back to lawsuit stuff, if you're working by referral, you have much less issues than you're working with kind of those random people you meet. But work on building that database for all you new agents out there. Start with open houses. You should be doing 2 a weekend if you possibly can. Double up on a day. I like to. I've worked with a couple of years ago, something like 140 days, something like that. I was in the office and showing people properties where I took like a day off. People are in different stages of life. Put the work in. All right, this is going to be a career for you, not a hobby. Make sure you treat it as a career. All right, a hobby is something you can do on the side. I think people who treat this as a hobby are going to be out of business in the next 2 years. Okay, treat it like a profession. You are professionals. Go out there. Put something together like this. You're happy to steal everything I have in here. You copy word for word. So just don't go taking around my logo and stuff like that on there. Also end up calling me. Don't want people stealing your clients. But make sure we go out there, prospect. Talking about buyers. I look at hot sheets a lot, which is just kind of, hey, what's happened in the last 24 hours, 3 days, 7 days. You can kind of make that criteria on there. Look around where you live, what's popped up around there. Who do you know that lives around houses that just popped up? I just saw one that popped up in Milestone. I called my 3 Milestone people and said, hey, this one just popped up in your neighborhood. Do you have any friends or family that want to move in to your neighborhood? Those are easy phone calls. You're on top of the market, you know what's going on. That's how you generate new buyers. Now they're kind of thinking of you, ask specific questions, and that's how you see results. So, all right, I'm over by 1 minute because all the people came in late. So, anybody got any questions on any of that? No, I talked fast, covered a lot of things. What questions do you guys have?
You did a great job.
All right, Mark, go.
Thank you.
Thank you.